Alright, so I'm Leslie and I'm giving my review for the book. If I had to give the book a review out of 10, I'd probably give it an 8.5 for many reasons. If you feel like you've really been thinking about how America is and I guess you're starting to take it for granted, I think this would be a good book to read since, of course, you will see how a dictatorship is ran. For example, North Korea. It really taught me to appreciate America a lot more than I did before. When you hear these things that go on in North Korea, it really is heartbreaking. Public executions, for example. The fact that people would go see the person who is getting executed while knowing that person is really heart-wrenching. And another thing that stood out to me from the book, from the very beginning, was when she said, "In a sense, I no longer belong to them," quoting her parents. "I belong to the state." For her to realize that at such a young age is crazy. And don't get me started on her views with the mental health, but all over the book, like, I'm not gonna say since that'll be a big spoiler. But with this book, I could see it all in my head, which is really when I know I enjoy the book. You could see it all, like, plotted in, which is a really good thing about the book, and they give so much details you can basically see it in your mind. But I think I will agree with Ben on character development and conflicts and etc. But Ben definitely gave a better review than I did for character development since I really didn't touch on that. I really enjoyed reading this book since, of course, it is based on a real story, but it's also heartbreaking to read. There were many areas where I was left on edge since, of course, I couldn't continue to read. But I would definitely recommend this book to anyone, again, who feels that they're struggling with their freedom. Not to feel bad, but rather to see how other people also have it and how we can avoid possibly having other areas go to this extreme.
Hold up. To add on to what Leslie said about living in America and realizing like we are truly like it, some people don't realize it, but we are truly lucky to live in a country like America because obviously there's places like North Korea where people just go through oppression. And then also to add on to where she said that she belonged to the state, it really exaggerates, not even exaggerate, because it really does happen in North Korea, but it really emphasizes the oppression poured down on the people throughout North Korea. But thank you for your guys' time, and those were our book reviews. All right, and now to talk about our personal favorite parts of the book. This is Ben, so I'll be going first. Definitely my favorite part of the book is when Hyanchio first gets her family into China. That's something else, because you run into the problem of, oh, Minho's in China, but what about his girlfriend? And that phone call, the phone call that Minho has with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's parents is something else. It was really touching to me because like it hurt almost. Like there's so little he could do, and Hyanchio helped him understand that because he can't risk going back into North Korea. If he goes back into North Korea, who knows what happens? Maybe they catch him and kill him and show him as an example of what they do to people who try to escape North Korea. But that was definitely my favorite part of the book, and it was almost kind of like a shift in mood in the book. It made it super realistic and just like what they went through. And I was just sitting there like, dang, like, I mean, I've never had someone obviously like close to a relationship, but I thought like maybe one of my best friends, like if I escaped out of North Korea and my best friend, I told him that I would come back from, calls me and, you know, asked me, hey, where are you at? Are you coming? And to have to tell them no would hurt my soul. Like, that is just something else. Like, I don't know how to even describe that because, but it was definitely my favorite part. And it really contributed to the plot. It also contributed to a minor theme of fear, definitely a minor theme of fear throughout the book. And then we didn't really discuss fear, though. It wasn't part of our four. But it contributes to just everything. Oppression, I guess you could say, too, because fearing to go back into your own home country, like, come on now. But it was definitely a change in the book. You know, I just don't see, I don't know how to describe it, but it makes it not more suspenseful. I can't think of the word, but just super intense. I can't think of the exact word, but definitely part of the book. Once you get there, it kind of hits you in your chest, like especially when Hyanseo describes the crying she hears from her parents, and then Hyanseo takes the phone from Minho and eventually hangs it up to just not go and get them at that time, and they move on. But that was something else. So it's definitely my favorite part of the book. Just to give you a wrap up of everything we've talked about, we've talked about the major themes in the story. We talked about the conflicts, symbols we saw throughout the story. We had some interviews. We gave a story review and then a slight summary of the book. Hopefully, by the end of all this, you have a better understanding of what goes on in North Korea, and hopefully you learn something from our podcast, mostly targeting oppression, obviously, because that was probably the major theme, honestly, throughout our podcast, too. It's shared exactly through the book, which is hard not to share because it's what the book mostly revolves around. But yeah, hopefully you have a better understanding of North Korea and an understanding of the book before or if you decide to read it. Thank you. Well, we all just want to thank you for taking your time to listen, but the book itself is something I definitely recommend to read. It really is a great book, and it opens your eyes a little bit too, especially if you live somewhere like America. This country is so much better than North Korea to live in. Maybe sometimes people do face hardships throughout America, but in North Korea, you're constantly facing hardships. You're constantly going through oppression. You are oppressed. There, you're seen as property and not a human. Like, you're the property of the government, just like Hyanseo said. And it's just an eye-opener. So it's definitely a book to read, and overall, it's a good book. It's hard not enjoy necessarily, but I guess you're kind of on your toes while reading the book because you just never know what's going to happen unless you knew the story before. But I didn't really know the story. I've heard of the book, but if somebody recommends it to you, I definitely would read it, and I guess I'm recommending it right now to you. But thank you for your time, and that's all we have to say.
Miss Knoll, this is my message to you about my group I was put in. They do not deserve anything above a 50%, in my opinion. That's obviously your opinion might be different, but the one thing I left in charge to Leslie was the works cited, and to get another interview, and to tell me her favorite part of the book. Guess what? She did none of that. None of that. Absolute zero. And then Pablo, he was all right, you know. He contributed to what he could do. He actually did what I told him to. He sent me the audios of him talking, so I'm grateful to him. And then Rayleigh, I mean, he just was never there. It's not, I would say it's not his fault, but it is his fault. But yeah, so basically none of them deserve above a 50%. And yes, I literally did the entire thing by myself. Oh, and the parts they did talk about, guess who gave them what to talk about? And I typed for them what to talk about. But, okay, this is me ranting. I decided to do this because I'm a little frustrated because I looked at the works cited and it's not even done right. So, yeah. Thank you, Miss Knoll.